Let's take a couple of minutes to look at some different numeric operations that we can perform on scalar variables. I'm talking about exponentiation and auto-increment. And while we're at it, let's take a look at a string operation called concantenation. So I'm going to open up a program that I just wrote. Here's the source code, and I'm simply going to point out the interesting parts. Now, the first interesting part is that I have this scalar variable called counter that I'm making it equal to the string value of 1. It's not a numeric value 1. It's the, if you will, the character representation of 1. Now, shortly I'm going to use it as a number. Right now it's a string, a character string, but when I use it as a number, Perl will automatically convert it to a number because of the context. I'm trying to use it as a number. Most programming languages would do one of two things. Either abort entirely and say, whoa, I don't know how to do that, or interpret its value because it's a string and not a number to be 0, which would be wrong in our case because we want to start counting at 1. Now, that said, our program is going to count from 1 to 10. And each time it counts, it's going to compute the cube of the number and print them both out to the screen. Okay, so we're counting 1 to 10. So I come down into a while loop, and I'm saying while counter is less than 11. Well, that's a numeric comparison. So at that point, even though it's stored as a string 1, it's interpreted as a numeric 1. Now I come down into my loop, and the first thing I really do is create a new scalar variable called cube. And I set it equal to the value of counter, in this case the numeric value of counter, and I raise it to a power of 3. Now you already know that an asterisk is used for multiplication, but 2 asterisks side by side is used for exponentiation, or raising a number to a power. And then we come down and take a close look at these 2 lines. What we're doing here is we have pieces of character string, such as the cube of, and we have scalar variables, which happen to be, in this case, 1 string and 1 number. And we're going to add all of these pieces together in a process known as concantenation. Concantenation. We concatenate with the period. That means add this to the end of the previous string. So we add counter to the end of the cube of. Again, we're going to add, in this case, the word is to the end of counter. Again, we add the value of cube to the end of is. And then we add, again, a period and 2 carriage returns to the end of cube. Now note, that period is not a concatenation operator. It's a string period because it's enclosed in quotes. Now what about that auto-increment? Here it is right here. All I do is list out the scalar variable counter followed by 2 plus signs, which is the equivalent of saying counter equals counter plus 1. So it simply goes through a process. Every time we encounter it, it adds 1 more to counter. We set counter to 1, So the first time we hit this statement, counter becomes 2, and then 3, and so on. Then we pause the program at the end just to hold it there for a minute so we can see it. Let's go to the terminal and let's run cube just to make sure it works. And there it is. Yep. The cube of 1 is 1. 1 times 1 is 1. Times 1 again is again 1. The cube of 2 is 8. 2 times 2 is 4. Times 2 is 8. The cube of 3 is 27. This is true. 3 times 3 times 3 is 27. So it works. Now, I'm going to press the return key, and we're back to our Unix prompt. Don't be afraid to use your auto-increment or exponentiation.